Opposition parties have found a new voice after the elections of 2024. But they have especially turned up the heat on the NDA government after the full budget. From their demand to remove GST on health insurance to questioning the government on price rise, on unemployment, even raising questions on the sports budget. The political discourse is being dominated by business and economics. The question is this a healthy sign for Indian democracy? Are we maturing? Is our democracy maturing? And is the focus that much more pointed on the kind of issues that the Aam Aadmi wants discussed in Parliament? Also, as economics, the new politics is what we'll discuss. But first, let's also put out what the government thinks of the opposition's questions. This is what we got.
देखिए, कांग्रेस ने कितने सिस्टमेटिक तरीके से भारत में अराजकता फैलाने का प्रयास किया। सबसे पहले उन्होंने आरोप किस पे लगाया था? एलआईसी पे। भारत के आम आदमी का सबसे ज्यादा पैसा इंश्योरेंस में किस में लगा है? एलआईसी। तो उन्होंने कहा एलआईसी बर्बाद हो गई। फैक्ट क्या है? एलआईसी ने पिछले तिमाही में 17,000 करोड़ का प्रॉफिट दर्ज किया, जो एलआईसी का ऑल टाइम है। दूसरा उन्होंने किस पे आरोप लगाया? स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया। भारत के लोगों के सबसे ज्यादा खाते अगर किसी एक बैंक में है, भारत का सबसे बड़ा बैंक स्टेट बैंक, उन्होंने कहा स्टेट बैंक बर्बाद हो गया है। पिछली और उससे पिछली वाली तिमाही में 21,000 करोड़ रुपए का प्रॉफिट दर्ज किया है, जो एसबीआई का ऑल टाइम हाई नहीं है। भारत के सारे प्राइवेट और पब्लिक सेक्टर्स को मिला के ऑल टाइम हाई है, मतलब रिलायंस से ज्यादा प्रॉफिट एसबीआई ने दर्ज किया है। उसके बाद उन्होंने क्या कहा? एचएएल क्या है? भारत का सबसे बड़ा डिफेंस का पीएसयू है, और मोदी जी की सरकार में आने के बाद भारत की रक्षा क्षेत्र में आत्मनिर्भरता में सबसे आगे एचएएल है। उन्होंने कहा एचएएल बर्बाद हो गया है। ये सिर्फ 1.5 साल पहले की बातें हैं। 2023-24 एचएएल का रेवेन्यू 29,000 करोड़ रुपीस है, जो ऑल टाइम हाई है, और 80,000 करोड़ का उनका पाइपलाइन में है। उसके बाद अब सेबी के ऊपर अटैक। तो हमें साफ समझ में आता है कि भारत के हर उस आर्थिक संस्थान के ऊपर आक्रमण है जिसके की द्वारा भारत की आर्थिक शक्ति और आर्थिक संपन्नता उभर कर सामने आती है।
Let's discuss this threadbare. Advocate Kapil Madan joins us on this debate, along with political analyst Tushar Gupta and journalist and political commentator Neerja Chowdhury also with us. Tushar Gupta, you tell us. You heard what Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi just said. As far as what he believes and what the BJP believes the opposition is doing right now, or what the Congress per se is doing, the kind of subject of debates at this point in time is more pointed towards issues of business and economics. Would you concede that? And why do you think that is happening?
Indeed, I think the issues which are subject of discussion now amongst the political parties or the leaders is considered more on the economic front. But look, there is a great overlap now happening between the politics and the economics of this country. Take an example, what happened over the weekend with Hindenburg. Probably they were trying to point out an economic issue, but it became a political slugfest. So our democracy today has a great overlap, a fusion, one can say, of politics, economics, and even technology for that matter. Let's not miss out on technology, which is now an integral part with the whole digitization push we've had in the last 10 years. But my worry, is that we're still not discussing the topics in the manner we must. Look, everyone, you spoke of maturing democracy. We have the highest number of retail investors in India right now. Forget the institutional investors, even people like you and me, the common Aam Aadmi, or the Aam Mahila is now coming to the market, putting out their savings. They're coming over stakeholders in the Indian growth story. So that is maturing. But the kind of discourse we are seeing from an opposition, that leaves a lot to be desired, especially since last year when they said that the public money is sinking, LIC is sinking. All that fear-mongering, that really leaves a bad taste. Because in a democracy, look, you can have political disagreements, but the economic goal should be common, that of the nation's prosperity. And that is where I think our democracy or our discourse today is faltering. That one party or one opposition, or probably the contrasting sides of the Indian polity, are not on the same page when it comes to the long-term goals of India's economy. You're looking at the Khatakhat model, which is not probably working in some states. You're looking at the welfare, which is being disrupted for whatever reason in certain states. You just had this instance where the union minister for roads and transport had to write to a state chief minister saying that, the workers of NHI cannot be under attack from the locals and all that things. So I think as long as our political disagreements aside, if we are united in the economic goals, I think that is where and what our democracy really needs right now. So that's the real point about political discourse, and I would like to go across to Mr. Madan on this as well.
Because we are talking about issues around taxation on the Aam Aadmi, because we are talking about GST on health insurance today, while we can discuss the quality of political discourse and how it's happening, the fact that these are the issues that are getting debated, isn't that suggesting a maturing of our legislative process?
Yes, I totally agree with you. I mean, these are the issues which, the common man, and especially the middle class who's been burdened with no, tax benefits. And in fact, the government is charging taxes on every possible place. Now, if you do a calculation, a person who earns, he ends up, paying about 10 to 30% tax to the government by way of a direct tax. When he goes and he buys any goods, he pays 12%. If he buys, little expensive goods, he pays 18%. If he buys luxury goods, he pays about 28%. So if you look at the average spend of any common man or any, middle class, he would, be spending anywhere between 10 to 40%, or maybe, in some more cases, about 50%, on taxes itself. And the fact remains that health is something we know. When COVID happened, our health infrastructure, we saw how it collapsed. I personally still feel that, we are, a way too inadequate to handle any kind of, health emergency. Even now, if you go to any private hospitals in Delhi, even if you have a health insurance, it would be extremely difficult for you to, find beds in a private hospital, and forget what is the state of affairs of the government-run hospital. So I think these are the issues which, should be debated. These are the issues which should be highlighted.
Yes.
And I personally feel that...
But Mr. Madan, do you think that you can actually incite people not to pay their taxes? In that sense, we're talking about the quality of political discourse, but does it need to go into extremes like that?
Vikram, no one is saying that you should not be paying your taxes. It would be preposterous to say that anyone, from the opposition or anyone, during the debates from the opposition anywhere suggests that people should stop paying taxes. What we are trying to highlight is that a significant portion of any person's income go in taxes, and especially in a places like this, where there is a health crisis, where there is some, serious illness that someone is facing. In that situation, at least you should give a breather to a middle class, because it is the middle class and the upper classes, or high income groups who have the health insurance, and the health crisis can come to anyone.
So this is a good issue to debate, Mr. Madan. There's no taking away from that. But as far as a shift is concerned, Neerja Chowdhury, do you see that? Is it palpable? From the time that we've had the outcome of the last election, the general elections, since we've had the budget, the kind of issues that are being raised, is the government being pushed towards answering very pointed questions about the kind of infrastructure that we have, for the kind of taxation system that we have? Is the government now having to answer those tough questions?
Absolutely. Since the opposition has emerged quite strong in this 18th Lok Sabha, they are combative. They are asking these questions. You're absolutely right, whether it's infrastructure, taxation, indexation, or rising prices or joblessness. And this is a very good thing. There'll be things that will be overdone, there'll be overkill. All that will happen, and you and I may feel this wasn't done right. This is competitive. Is this competitive anarchy, competitive economics, competitive politics? But correctives will come out of this whole...
Neerja Chowdhury, why do you think this is happening?
I think this is something that the people have obviously felt. Why is it the Constitution of India became such an issue this time in this election? Normally, Constitution would be looked upon as a very elitist concept for ordinary people. But this time it was not. It was the Dalits who got exercised. It was the OBCs and the extremely backward that got exercised. And I must say here, since we are only 2 days away from 15th August, yes, I believe our democracy, our incredible democracy is maturing. And that you just look at the way women are rising. You talked about Aam Aadmi. I would say Aam Aurat.
Yes.
Look at Vinesh Fogart out there. Look at her spirit, the never say die spirit. In a couple of hours, the whole country is about to know what is going to happen. Will she make it will she get a silver or not?
Yes.
It is never say dry spirit. And what does that indicate? An attempt at excellence by
Right.
women.
Right.
Number two, women emerging as a vote bank. These doctors who are out all over India protesting
Yes,
against the
they're protesting.
horrendous rape, against violence against women. This is the decentralization of power to communities that have not exercised it.
Right.
So, Ladli Behna Yojana won the BJP elections in Madhya Pradesh. Today it's being copied in Maharashtra. And women as a vote bank emerging.
Right.
So I think communities that have been
So
on the
people's
periphery
voices
now
are being
coming
that much more
center stage.
represented. The kind of thought processes that exist within the Aam Aadmi, the Aam Aurat, that much more is being seen in our political discourse is what you're suggesting. Tushar Gupta, if India is to overtake Germany and Japan and become the world's third largest economy after the US and China by the year 2030, you tell me, what are the economic issues that we need to tackle with a strong focus at the legislation level, and if we are on course to do that?
Look, if you're looking to compete with the likes of Germany and Japan, of course, China in the longer run, we have to fix the foundations. We've done a lot of it in the form of financial and social inclusion. But now we need to look at the skilling part. We need to look at the digital education part. Let's be very honest. Physical infrastructure has still not reached the place where digital infrastructure has. So can we convert our education model into a digital education model? Can we do the same for skilling? Can we do the same for, say, higher education? So those things will be very, very important, because unless we can't capitalize on our demography, then there is no point of competing with China. And that is where our focus in the next 5, 10, 15 years will have to be. I think, Vikram, call me a bullish, but I think in 5 years, 10 years from now, India's economy would be in a position where young people, so aged 25 to 30 years, will find it more suitable to create jobs rather than look for jobs. So they'll find it incentivizing to create or become wealth creators rather than look for jobs for 9 to 5 typical jobs. So I think that is where I see India's economy growing. And you asked this very important question, that why is our discussion now focused more towards economics? Because irrespective of how many divisions the political fraternity of this country tries to make, say divide them into caste or religion, at the end of the day, everyone wants economic prosperity as an individual, as a household. And that is where people are now asking. Like Kapil also said that we are, say, in the 30% bracket. There are people who are just beginning to file their ITRs. But people are saying, what is the value I'm getting for every rupee of tax I pay to the government?
Indeed.
Is it being used to build better hospitals? Is it being used to build better expressways, highways, railroads, whatever? But people want more value out of their tax, and that is how they're economically analyzing these political parties. And that is when the next 5 years, again, call me very hopeful, but I think the freebie model will also come to an end. People will start scrutinizing how some khatakhat models are really working and how welfare, which is more targeted, really works. So I think that is where our democracy is now maturing. We've gone from roti kapda makan to welfare. Now we'll go from welfare to targeted welfare. Eventually we'll go to the second and third order network effects, and then the people of India, around 500 or 700 million of them, who will be breadwinners for their households, will be asking how the government, any government, intends to spend my tax money, on how does it intend to do it, and what impacts it has on my local economy. I think that is where our democracy is really maturing, and that is why I bring back to my original point. The political discourse in this country, where it's faltering today, is we are no longer united in our long-term economic goals. That's a major concern for worry.
But how can you be united? There will be disagreements, and disagreements lead to kind of change and answering the kind of questions that voice the needs of the people. Like you're saying, Mr. Madan, do you agree to increase jobs, to improve access to better healthcare, better education, to push up formalization in the economy, getting more women in the workforce? All of these require models to be questioned. If they are existing and are not working for some amount of time, there will be fundamental changes that one needs to bring in. You agree? And that process, do you think, are we on the right path with the course the opposition is taking now and how the government is responding to them?
So, Vikram, numbers don't lie. If you look at the, in the employment rate in India, that's on a very higher side. That's point number one. If you look at the political discourse of the incumbent government, what they have been promising during the first term was they promised about 2 crores, 20 lakhs, 2 crores jobs in here. They, miserably failed to deliver that. Now we have several departments where, be it police, be it railways, be it army, you have, huge amount of vacant positions which the government is not filling. And if you ask me a question, what is the reason of it? I mean, that purely it suggests that you don't have the means and the mechanism to ensure, or to give that kind of employment to our people. That's point number one. Second is that if your political discourse, would be on the issues of polarization and not to the issues that really matters to, the people of the country, then you will have these kind of results. Look at what happened in Delhi, in Rajendra Nagar. A basement got flooded. Why the basement got flooded? Because, the drainage system was not working. Just one rain and, the entire, the city gets flooded. What do the common man, get to face? People, if they are, going out, they're being drawn. If they're going out somewhere, you have incidents of electrocution. If you're, going out, sometimes your car will break down in water. I mean, that's not the kind of infrastructure you can have, and then you can boast yourself that you will be a superpower or one of the largest economy of the country.
Right.
Your number, the kind of infrastructure you're giving to the people will speak for itself.
So that is the same point, actually, what Tushar Gupta is saying, that now the electorate wants to get more value for the kind of taxes that they are paying. More value, definitely, but we're talking sometimes about the basics over here. In terms of economic prosperity and our drive for all of us within the country to drive, to kind of push for economic prosperity, it's going to be a cohesive process. At this point in time, Neerja Chowdhury, where are we on that journey?
Well, I would say two very simple things. One is that this khata-khat model that's gaining currency and has an appeal with the electorate. People have a cynicism about anything long-term being done by government, no matter which government is in power. They don't believe their rulers anymore, that in the long run, long-term development, something will be done for them. So let's get me, what are you giving me in hand now and here? And that is why we have this competitive welfareism today. If Congress has talked about one internship scheme, the finance minister has come out with another internship scheme. Where is the money going to come from? A lot of questions have been raised. I don't want to go into that. But at the end of the day, if we look at it as a very, if I as a voter, I as a citizen of India, if you were to ask me, I would say if there's one issue on which you need a consensus today, a national consensus, it is how to address joblessness. That is a burning issue today, and that is going to become even more of a burning issue today. And therefore, you need to reach across the aisle on that one. You need to put your best minds, not just in politics and bureaucracy, in the corporate world, finance world, academic world, on how we are going to meet this challenge.
Indeed. So collectively, that process, as inclusive as we'd hope it would be, and like Tushar Gupta said, we are ever hopeful that that process, it has been kickstarted and the Indian economy will rise without doing less of the tu-tu meh-meh that our politics often gets reduced to. We need to see our labor pool. It's large, it's deep, but it needs that much more focus and drive and that much more direction. We are hoping that things will move at a rapid pace here on. That is something that we are banking on. It's great to have Kapil Madan, Tushar Gupta, Neerja Chowdhury on this discussion. And indeed, as we celebrate our 70th year of independence, we're going to have that many more interesting debates to take that journey ahead.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.